Hey y'all, I'm Carolina Tony. Today the road brings me to Madison, Georgia. I have drove through this town on several occasions and I've always noticed just how beautiful it is. This was one of the towns that when Sherman marched through it, for some reason he didn't burn it. However, in the late 1800s a lot of the town was burnt, but not because of the Yankees. Well, we are going to go into some of the old houses today. Go tour around and show you just what is here in Madison, Georgia. And we'll get started right after the station identification. Well, this is the center of the town in Madison, Georgia. In the late 1800s, just about all the buildings burned down because of fire. And over time, they've been replaced by all brick structures. A little more sturdy. This house is actually one of the houses that we are going to go inside and tour. The Rogers house. Next to it, this little cottage has been moved to this location, but one of the enslaved ladies that worked at the Rogers house, after she was freed, she saved her money from sewing and taking jobs and bought a home, and it's been moved here.
Reuben Rogers. He bought lot 6 in 1809 for $111. He built the house for $400 and he sold it a year later for $1,000. He then dropped off the tax records and we don't know what happened to good old Reuben. Originally the house, this was the end of the house. These two rooms were added in the 1820s. There were 3 steps that came right here, and then they would turn very abruptly and go upstairs. Now, there's been 17 different families to own the home. The Hunter family owned it for almost 100 years. Now, Mrs. Hunter, several years ago, came out on her porch, which, if you go down Main towards 20, on the left, there's a big Victorian-style house with a big, we call it the gingerbread house. She came out and everybody in town went and wished her a happy birthday, and she passed away just a couple of days before her 104th birthday.
Wow.
Got together and furnished it in period furniture. You're not going to see original furnishings, but these are original heart pine floors.
So this furnishing is around early 1900s?
Right.
Okay.
Well, they said they furnished it in period furniture. Now we periodically get things just added because people donate it, so we...
So original door, original floors.
And the wainscoting in the living room painted on the...
Right.
Painted on the original wood is original to the home. Well, we call this our Bible door, our Christian door. It has the cross, the open Bible, and a man came through and said these represented the 10 Commandment tablet.
So,
a good painter.
The little boy, the eyes, and they're moving.
No, they don't.
Well, they look, I know, but they look like they're moving. When you move around, look.
That's what they say.
They're fooling. He's looking over here.
Oh, yeah.
It's creepy.
It's reproduction, but they would take canvas from old sailing ships back then and paint on them and use them for...
Rows.
Yes, or wall hangings, whichever. This is just called a cricket, and the reason it's called a cricket is that when it heats and cools, it chirps like a cricket. And this is just an old buttermilk pitcher with a dog handle. They say the dogs love to lap up buttermilk on the back porch. Drawing of what the home would have looked like in 1809. And on this, about the 5th one up, I believe it is, it says Reuben Rogers paid $111, and it says bonds taken. So I'm not sure what kind of bonds he had, but orders.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison was on the stagecoach route from Charleston to New Orleans. Therefore, sometimes there were up to 19 to 30 people staying in this house at one time. But of course, 9 children made a big part of it.
And this would have been when?
1820.
1820. The house was expanded and she took in boarders.
Right.
Got it.
Are you doing this for a particular down? Now, the bathtub was found under the house when it was restored.
Mm-hmm.
The saying is the man got the first bath on down to the baby head. Just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The beds also had ropes, usually coming crossways too. Now, this is a smaller bed. And the larger beds had some type of a roller, and they could roll and tighten those ropes at night. Now, the most is the wallpaper, the original wallpaper behind the door.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes they would actually just pin the wallpaper up in the winter times to keep the air from coming through and making it warmer, I guess. And then they would take it down, roll it up, and reuse it if possible.
This is Aniline Rose?
Aniline Rose.
Aniline Rose, that's original
Yes, that is a
photograph of her. And she died at how old?
She was, she died in 1957, I believe.
Yeah.
Let me check that to make sure. It's the 1800s, and there's a backward S. And I always think of the underground when they would hold the quilts to tell them if it was safe to stop or if they should turn around or whatever. And this, I believe that they enclosed the porch when they moved the cottage because she would have done her laundry on the back porch originally. Now, possibly she enclosed it, but I don't really think so. But, and the floors are different. So, but anyway, they wanted to.
Oh, really?
And that iron they would fill with hot rocks.
Right.
Gold.
So that was her ironing board
Yes.
and her basket.
Right. One of her baskets.
Yeah. The Aniline Rose house belonged to Aniline Rose. She was born basically as a free woman, but her parents were slaves. And she managed to make money and buy this home, and it sit on the edge of town. But it's been moved here so people could get an idea of what a working class family home would look like in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Not everyone lived high on the hog like their neighbors next door. This was known as the Stagecoach House in the days when the stagecoach ran from Augusta to New Orleans. It would pass right by this house. This house has taken on many different looks down through the years. Even in the early 1800s, the porch was added, and this thought that this house was perhaps moved to this location in the early 1800s. The Oak House is one of the younger historic houses in Madison. It was built around 1890. This is a drawing of what they called their formal landscapes. You can see it's quite elaborate. And here today we have some, and it is really unreal. The Madison Depot, Augusta 103 miles, Atlanta 68 miles. The Georgia Railroad, chartered in 1833, reached Madison from Augusta in 1944. This, the first brick station in Georgia, was built by John B. Walker on land deeded by Adam Saffold. It was partially burned by federal troops on December the 3rd of 1864. The first train from Madison to Marthasville, which is Atlanta, ran on September the 15th, 1845. Main Street, and we are at the Heritage Hall. It's also known as the Johnson Jones Manley House. Was built in 1811. During the 1840s through the 1850s, the front pillars were added on to give it the Greek Revival facade. They'll tell you in Charleston that they paint the top of the porches, or the underside of the porch, blue, and that blue has got a name. They call it haint blue. They say it's to keep the haints away, but I think it's also to keep the insects and birds away. Now, this is how most people think all Southerners lived in the 1800s. And this was actually a townhouse. This is a list of all the folks that have owned the house. From 1811 to 1830, William Johnson, and then Elijah Jones, Elijah Charles Jones, then his granddaughter. And most of this furniture represents the furniture that you would have seen in the mid-1800s.
This house was built, and you know Madison was incorporated in 1809.
Mm-hmm.
This house was built in 1811.
Right.
This was a large 4-acre city farm. This whole block was a 4-acre city farm. Until late 1800s, early 1900s. And the Methodist Church wanted to move from one of the back streets up here across from the Baptist Church. So Mr. Turnell owned the house, and he sold them that lot. This house sat where the Methodist Church is.
And so it's moved over.
And so they used 114 horses and mules and lifted the house on logs, all these men, and moved the house to this location and turned it to face Main Street.
Wow, I'd like to saw that.
So Dr. Jones had come to Madison from Virginia with 1 year's training as a doctor. And he became quite wealthy, but not from practicing medicine. It was from owning a lot of land in the area and person who owned the house and lived here.
Okay, and when would this have been?
1946 to 1976.
Okay.
And that's her wedding portrait from 1909. An amazing thing is, you know, when we came to the United States, the natural resources had to be just beyond anything we can comprehend.
Right.
But these boards, from that front door to beyond my desk, are one piece.
Oh, really?
About 36 feet. I don't have to tell you this is up class, but Dr. Jones raised 5 children here, 4 girls and a boy. When his girls were engaged, they got diamond rings, and so they tried those out on the windows to be sure that they were legitimate.
So is it still here?
Mm-hmm. Look. I would have given that one an A in penmanship. That Jones had children.
Yeah.
She remarried, and she's got his name in the dining room window. So it was not, you know, it was not a T.
It's hard to tell, but it was written with a diamond ring inscribed in the glass. And we see a lot of that from that period of history. And apparently that was a culture with people that had diamonds.
A student at the female college, she was middle class.
Uh-huh.
When she became engaged, of course, her fiance could not afford a diamond. So to show the world that she was engaged, she has that double part in her hair.
No, I didn't know that.
They're the Waltons. They were pioneers to the county, raised 9 children here. His uncle, George Walton, was one of our signers of the Declaration of Independence. I mean, you can see that it has been well used. Now, I said, had he been a died and we inherited a lot of stuff. This partner's desk, this chair, this bookcase, and you know, today, furniture's cut in two so it's easier to move.
Right.
This is one
That's
piece.
all one piece. Wow.
And of course, all the books and everything right here came from them.
That is supposedly the oldest piece of furniture in Madison,
Right.
made by slave labor. And it's detailed too.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. There's a lot of work in that.
Went to West Point with John Sherman, William Sherman's brother. He was our senator.
Yeah.
Did not believe in secession, but Georgia seceded. So, you know, when we seceded, he had no more business in Washington. He came back home.
Right.
His son fought in the Civil War and was killed in North Georgia. Because he was a friend of John Sherman, he was able to get an audience with William Sherman to say, can I go to North Georgia and get my son and bring him back to bury him? And Sherman said, sure. And so
this is the stuff that they were gonna get rid of, and they told y'all just to come get it.
anything you wanted.
Yeah, so
And
prescriptions.
so, you know, then these were in
Yeah.
good enough condition to
Yes,
be
that's
framed.
what I was gonna ask you about,
Yeah.
the doctor and equipment
Right.
came from there.
Now, these were not Dr. Jones. They've been donated to us by Atlanta doctors.
Right.
But they're the same tools that would have been used in the Civil War.
Right.
And of course, 90% of the young men who lost limbs, you know, died because of infection that was just passed from one to
Right.
the other.
So the chances that that saw was used to saw off a Confederate soldier's arm or leg are probably
Many.
very good.
Many arms and legs on the side of the house, and you'll see the beautiful crown molding and the medallions that Dr. Jones had added. And of course, and I can't turn that light on,
Yeah.
we had a storm and it got our chandelier.
Yeah.
But this was not done by, you know, people who had been trained, but by the time they finished this, you know they were master craftsmen.
Yes.
That it's just beautiful.
And this huge pocket door too.
These pocket doors are amazing because they still work. You know, even after the house has been moved, it's huge, heavy, solid wood doors. And of course, these fancy ones are the ladies, you know, but there and in here are.
Really? And you know, I would have never guessed those to be spittoons.
You know, they look like vases, don't
They do. They do.
But
Yeah, I could see those sitting on a coffee table and somebody eating candy out of them.
I know
So,
it.
you know, some old man just spit the back in those things.
that's right.
Wow.
But you know, this was the common one
Exactly.
and was.
I've actually had one like that before.
Uh-huh.
I would never used it because I ain't doing that stuff. But look at this one. It's got like a, I know you spit in it and it drains into the bottom so you don't have to see it.
Right.
The area that we're stopping in, this is where the children would have spent most of their time. And because the hallways were so large and wide, they were used as extra living spaces. And you saw the steps, the side steps where the enslaved people would come to the second floor to ask the children's room. And I'll just point out while I see our curtain. I don't know what's happened to my curtain over here. We do have a ghost, so perhaps.
So we got a ghost.
We do have a ghost.
Yeah.
And
I would be surprised if you didn't.
her name is Virginia, and we think, and she was one of Dr. Jones's daughters who passed away during childbirth. And so generally, if a guest feels a presence, it's in this room or the next room we're going to go into. But in this room, we've got the rose and navy coverlets, and they have an 1845 date woven into them. And the horse in front of the window with the little boy, that was made in Madison and has the original upholstered seat. And then the high chair is from the late 1880s and is on wheels because when the sides are pressed down, the seat will lower, and there is a handle on the back, and now it is a stroller.
Love it all.
I will say our wallpaper is a replica.
Okay.
But as you're looking at the bed there, you'll notice the headboard is attached with an iron hook to the post. And that is called a summer bed because in the summertime that headboard would have been removed. The bed slid to a window to get as much air, ventilation as possible for those sleeping, and then moved back in the his daughter, Mary Jenny. And her first husband, Mr. Reed, passed away, and she married Mr. Moultrie. And but she and Mr. Reed had 2 daughters, advertising home cooking and reasonable rates.
So around 1923, this home was a traveler's home?
It was. And Mr. Turnell had 2 bathrooms built in the area that you're standing in. They looked like there was a male bathroom and a female bathroom.
Now that is weird.
And those bathrooms remained until 1997. And that's when the Historical Society had them removed to restore that room. And that is Mrs. Manley on the wall. That is her in her golden years. And then her granddaughter that gave us the home. We do have a painting on top of the original on this one, but we've got Stuart and Jenny.
Yeah.
And then January the 1st, 1873.
She had called this out, and I did not notice before going in, but they did this in the Greek Revival style. And the round columns, he wanted to be different, so the ones on the outside are not round, they're square. Well, that is going to be our wrap for our trip to Madison, Georgia. I love going in these old homes, learning a little bit about the history, the people that live there, the things they did is really fascinating. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a big old thumbs up. Be sure to share it with your family and friends. But until next time, y'all have a good day.